Yeah, I'm glad the Japanese don't usually fly to our Grand Prix and steal our trophies. You know what I mean? Because clearly, obviously, they're the Asian players having a good tournament so far and showing their chops in a brand new format.
Here you get a look at Ken Yukihiro as he opens up his pack. And let's see what he narrows in on here in this second draft. I see a Plague Mare. I see a Psy Master Thopterist. There were two of them at the last draft we watched. Neither player ended up with them early enough to really exploit them. You also see a Nightmare's Thirst Strangling Spores. There's a Colossal Dreadmaw in the pack.
A bunch of cards of fairly close power level, but it's kind of nice to start with a Psy because now you can, where it's close, be able to take the Sky Scanner over something of comparable power level.
You just want them to take the Sky Scanner.
I always do. I love a Sky Scanner. Yeah.
And we saw Wesco actually do that, right? It's like Sky Scanner into Thopter token in the first draft. Craig Wesco, by the way, also at this table, he's like in the 8th spot at the table, and he's got 2 losses. So there's a Volcanic Dragon as the card that gets singled out. There's also an Essence Scatter and an Arcane Encyclopedia. There's a Runic Armasaur. I love that Essence Scatter. I've just been taking them so highly in this format.
Yeah, given that you started with a blue card, I think Essence Scatter is similar power level to Volcanic Dragon, may even be better than Volcanic Dragon.
Which is kind of crazy.
Yeah. And so, kind of a clear Essence Scatter pick there. Ken would love to be blue-white. That's where Psy is going to shine the absolute most for him. But obviously is kind of solidifying himself into blue. We'll use these next couple picks to try to figure out what else is open.
Now, what are the best ways to exploit a Psy in your estimation? I mean, Sky Scanner is a card you've mentioned multiple times. There's another Essence Scatter for him, by the way. Magistrate Scepter as an artifact, but not something players are looking to sink 15 mana into a Time Walk.
Right. And once again, the best card in the pack is blue, so easy pick for Ken. So to answer your question, it's not so much about exploiting the Psy, so much so that blue-white as an archetype wants to play the incidental artifacts anyway in order to support its synergies. And so Psy looks a lot stronger when you can just kind of stick Field Creeper into your deck, to activate with the Animist, for example, and it just happens to make you a Thopter along the way.
I don't know if Ken was just kind of envisioning what might come back around, but you saw him sort of look at that Inspired Charge that's in the pack, and that's a card in that blue-white archetype I would assume that really shines. Oh, wow, look at this card, though. Skyrider Patrol. We see him getting this card 4th pick.
Yeah, Skyrider Patrol, the best card in the booster pack, and he may take this as sort of a direction. Now, we haven't
He could also take an Electrify, though. Blue-red is perfectly fine.
Could take Electrify, but I think Skyrider Patrol is just too good.
I agree.
It's one of those cards where we don't know if green is going to flow, but if it does, I mean, Skyrider Patrol, one of the very, very best uncommons in the format. You can't leave it on the battlefield for too many turns before you just lose.
Right, and it doesn't. It's also a splashable card that has a pretty big impact on a game that goes long.
Mm-hmm.
So here we see some white cards. We see a Marauder's Axe. We see a couple of other green cards if he wants to go Oaken form. He's definitely thinking about, he's going to take that Marauder's Axe, a card he's shown a lot of interest in, but better in this deck where he has the Psy Master Thopterist, can make those flying tokens, and also those flying tokens can really use the axe very well.
And we saw Kentaro Yamamoto also take a Marauder's Axe out of pack that I was surprised in. I'm surprised that Ken likes the Marauder's Axe as well. I think that might just be kind of a difference in the way that potentially some of the Japanese players in preparation for this tournament have valued equipment versus maybe how I've experienced it. So I would have looked at maybe Colossal Dreadmaw in that booster or even Cavalry Drill Master thinking about white, but he likes the axe.
There you see a Salvager of Scatters.
Yeah, the Salvager of Secrets clearly not only the best card in the booster, but also in his color. So we know he's blue. That's what we know so far, right?
That's what he did. That's what he did to get to this position in the tournament too.
And he would love, to see like a Druid of the Cowl in this booster. But if he has to dip out of blue and into another color, it's not the catastrophe. Wow.
A little mana fixing, Highland Lake, Ruptured Spire, but there's also Marauder's Axe. There's also a cancel in the pack.
And I'm surprised he doesn't even look at Strangling Spores as a possibility.
Oh, was there a Strangling Spore?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
so,
there it is in the back of the pack.
So that to me, that would be a pretty clear signal to see a Strangling Spores this late, that black is pretty much open, but he is going to stay on track.
Now, is there any fear that you feel like you've passed a lot of black in the early going?
There's some, but it is far more important to read what's coming from your right than it is to know what you're passing to your left.
All right, so Diamond Mare, Explosive Apparatus, Colossal Dreadmaw. It's going to take the Diamond Mare. Again, thinking about artifacts. You said that you have these incidental artifacts that kind of just work out really well with the Sai.
Yeah, it's not entirely impossible that he could be like a mono blue deck at this point, given how much blue appears to be flowing, maybe splashing like a couple green cards or something of that nature. So Diamond Mare in a deck with 18 blue cards is incredibly high value card.
All right, there's a Nightmare's Thirst. I think this might have been his opening pack.
And this is, seeing these kinds of black cards like Nightmare's Thirst, it felt like black was kind of flowing, and that's why I'm surprised. I don't know if Strangling Spores was the right pick, but I'm surprised he didn't even really consider it. Yeah.
Put to the front. Wow, look at this Arcane Encyclopedia. He can't even contain himself. He drops it on the floor.
Really nice fit. Really nice fit for his deck. Nothing better than you trading off 1-for-1 with a few Essence Scatters that he already has picked up, and then starting to draw cards and pull ahead. Maybe make an Incidental Thopter along the way.
Yeah, what better way to celebrate the 25th anniversary of Magic than by obsoleting the Jam Day tone completely?
Very tough pick there that he makes very confidently. He takes the Child of Night, so potentially dipping into black. There was an Anticipate, which could have potentially made his deck as well. So
there's Walking Corpse.
Making an investment in future Lilianas.
Liliana untouched by most players at the table.
Walking Corpse untouched by everyone, pretty much.
It takes a Duress. And just winding down again, we talked about this before, the dregs of the pack. Revitalize, Catalyst Elemental, thinking about future dragons.
So we know we're blue. That's what we figured out so far.
Wow, and he just got a 15th pick Highland Lake.
Wow. Yeah. So he's dabbled in black, as we saw. Dabbled in, I wouldn't say dabbled in green. He took one Skyrider Patrol. Yeah. But realistically, he's blue and has the flexibility to go into a couple different kind of colors and archetypes for Pack 2. The Marauder's Axe, really the one sort of surprising pick for me. It's not a card that I value particularly highly in these blue control, mid-range, late-game type of decks. But again, that's just a delta in evaluation between myself and some of the Japanese players that we saw earlier, exemplified by Kentaro Yamamoto. So Ken here is hoping, we've seen a lot of these drafts in Core Set 2019, to figure out which of the synergies he's targeting and whether he wants to go into green, black, or do I open something even like Enigma Drake and even go into a different color.
Sure. Even potentially open up a 3-color dragon that touches blue and possibly to go down that road.
The difference between Ken's draft and some of the other decks that we've seen have inflection points, if you will, early in Pack 2, is that Ken really knows that blue is open. He feels very strongly about that. So he can be confident to get multiple blue playables in Pack 3, barring something weird like his opponent opening Tezzeret and moving into it. So, it's very unlikely that Ken's deck is totally going to train wreck at this point. So if he needs to dabble a little more early in Pack 2, he can defer the decision as to which colors to be later than normal.
Let me ask you another question. So as the only undefeated player in this tournament, what record does Ken need to draft again to get into the top 8?
Basically a win, and he feels very, very confident. A win and a draw to make it deterministic, to guarantee him a spot. In small Grand Prix fields, I would say you could even just get in with just a draw. But realistically, that one win is the record that he's targeting at this point. In general, though, I think that if you think about drafting for specific records that you're targeting, you end up hurting yourself more than helping yourself when you start to think about things like that.
You don't think there's a safer deck you can draft rather than, taking the high variance, I have to 3-0 kind of
I think that you just want to try to give yourself as many 60% chances to win as possible, and if you lose 3 60%ers in a row, it wasn't meant to be.
You get to change your flight. All right, so Dwindle gets pushed to the front of the pack. Child of Night, he's definitely thinking about the black. He also has a Centaur Courser. There's a Metamorphic Alteration. So he's taking a look at that. Not quite as good as Mirror Image was for him in that first draft.
kind of a dud booster. I think that the best card, if he knew his colors already, would be the Centaur Courser. Dwindle, totally fine as well.
He likes that metamorphic alteration.
I don't mind the metamorphic alteration. It's going to make your deck more often than not. Surprising as a first pick to me. I think that there are too many times it doesn't do enough, whereas Dwindle is always going to kind of handle a problem for you.
But again, maybe feels like he's seen the blue cards coming around the table so far today. Well, there's Bone to Ash. You see an Omen Speaker. There's a Rabid Bite. Again, green is still a possibility for him. He's got that Skyrider Patrol. But he's going to go with Omen Speaker. He values gumming things up early on, getting to dig a little bit through his deck, smooth out his draws.
Omen Speaker, a card that's always going to make his deck, and this is what I meant, right? Normally you would say this is the inflection point, right? He's chosen to abandon green. I don't necessarily think that he has completely abandoned green in his mind. Rabid Bite's not enough better than Omen Speaker that he wants to reduce his flexibility. So he's still just kind of keeping his options open. He's blue. We know he's blue. He's still waiting for like that kind of clear delta in power level where he sees some green or black card that he can't pass up.
All right. Let's see. Tormenting Voice. There's a Declared Dominance I see as a green card. Fraying Omnipotence. Cancel. And he's looking at the Declare Dominance.
One thing that I've noticed also about Ken, he does not particularly like Strangling Spores. He does not consider it as an option in
there's another Strangling Spore. Oh, wait. He might be considering it. He's kind of pushed it up a little bit. He's also thinking about that cancel. But it looks like he is going to say, okay, green it is. I'll take a Declare Dominance, get past this. I think maybe I have a couple of not green drafters next to me.
I quite like the Declare Dominance. I think that...
Oh, there's a Rabid Bite, an Aviation Pioneer.
I think...
a Mirror Image card that's been very good to him today.
And it looks like black may be being cut from this side. You know, we've seen only a Strangling Spore so far in this booster in terms of playable black cards, where it seems like blue and green is really flowing. So,
all right, Mirror Image was the pick. Again, 4 copies of Mirror Image in his last draft. We saw him copying Siege Flynos. We saw him copying... Don't look at me like that, Maria Bartholdi.
What'd you call it again? Siege Flyno?
Yeah, Siege Flyno.
That's bad.
I know. There's a Centaur Courser.
And now this is the pick where if you take Centaur Courser, that's saying I'm settling in, right? That's I'm blue-green.
Yeah, there you go.
Mirror Image, by the way, a card that has dramatically increased in my estimation since the set came out. It came out, I thought, borderline playable, and I've just consistently seen it provide 5, 6, 7 mana worth of value for 3 mana. So quite a nice card, I think, in this format.
Yeah, so I'm just copying, Wind Mages, copied the Vampire Sovereign. Everything he did was good. Wow, there's a Rabid Bite. There's a Gigantosaurus if he's feeling spicy, but he'll take that Rabid Bite.
I just really like the way Ken is navigating this particular draft. He sacrificed maybe a very tiny bit of equity taking an Omen Speaker over a Rabid Bite to keep himself, give himself the flexibility in case he saw some crazy black flowing from the left. It didn't happen. Now he's moving into green. He didn't wait too long, and now he's got himself on track to a very nice blue-green deck. Maybe a little low on the power level, but pretty strong in terms of consistency. Oh my gosh.
Strangling Spores just keep putting them in front of him.
And let's not mince words. Strangling Spores on rate, poor removal. To only be able to kill kind of a 3 toughness creature, that's a lot of mana for that effect.
We've paid as little as 2 mana for that.
Yes. But still, you don't look at good force in the mouse. You don't look a good removal in the mouse either.
Sometimes you need to drive in a nail with the heel of a shoe.
Wow, and a Druid of the Cowl.
Are you kidding me?
Oh, wow.
Wow, and he passes up Druid of the Cowl for that Gearsmith Guardian that's been so good to him.
Yeah, that's an interesting pick to me.
Again, it's an artifact. He's got a lot of blue creatures. Maybe he's thinking his green is going to be a very light splash and doesn't anticipate having green mana on turn 2 to really use that Druid of the Cowl.
Or even potentially just keeping his option to go back into black. He did take that Strangling Spores. He does have a few black cards.
All right, there's Rupture Spire, Titanic Growth, Highland Game. Rupture Spire has been pretty disappointing for me as far as mana fixing goes.
Agreed. And unlikely Titanic Growth was going to make his deck either. It could have potentially made his deck, but that's not exactly the ideal blue-green card.
How about a late Thornhide Wolves? 5 cards left in the pack.
Love Thornhide Wolves in this format.
He's like, by the way, can I get that Druid of the Cowl back?
Yeah, that was the first kind of surprising pick for me. I think the late Strangling Spores may have... wow.
It's Totally Lost. Are we going to finally see someone take a Totally Lost here?
Nope. These are the really tough picks.
Well, again, he does have the Rupture Spire, and maybe there's some other black mana fixing that he could pick up along the way here.
And we know he's in the right shard,
Yeah.
But at this point now, he's taken enough. He's dabbled enough in both black and green that he's going to have left a good amount of equity on the table by his kind of indecision during the second half of this booster.
Yeah, was that an abnormal endurance? Well, okay. Let's see how he sorts this out, because it's going to tell us quite a bit here. We know the blue is his primary color. Let's see what it looks like as he fans through the picks. So definitely has a nice amount of artifacts for his Sai. And it looks like, he's not really paying. He's like, okay, I have these black cards, but I'm not planning on playing them unless something goes really wrong.
Could lightly splash black and blue-green. That's not infeasible as well. And remember, we talked about this earlier. We expect the blue to flow in Pack 3 again, barring the guy on his right having opened something like Tezzeret in Pack 2 and just moving in. So his deck still expects to be base blue. I think it's most likely that green is his second color. He may touch black. There are certainly worlds where Psychic Symbiont or something of that nature moves him into more of a blue-black deck. But I think he envisions his deck being blue-green.
I tell you, he needs some creatures. He has about 8, and I know we talked about you're happy with 8 creatures sometimes, but that's where you have a lot of removal or ways to deal with creatures. He doesn't have a ton of that. I mean, he has the Essence Scatters, but...
Yeah, a couple Scatters, Rabid Bite, and those... Essence Scatter specifically is the type of card that can allow you to deal with a lower creature density in terms of just sheer volume, because it can be that 2-drop replacement to prevent your opponent from, they're on the play, they play a Centaur Courser, and you stop it with a Essence Scatter. That's that kind of thing. So I would say we're at panic mode yet in terms of the creature count. Again, he has enough of that kind of interaction, but he does want to keep aware about how much he can do turns 2 through 4.
Yeah, and I think that may have been part of that when we talked about that Omen Speaker pick, where he's like, okay, I definitely want to have something that I can get on the board on turn 2, deal with a Pyromancer, deal with a Drill Master. All right, so he's getting ready to dig into this third pick. What would you like to see here?
Right, honestly, for me, I would want to open something like Vivian or Murder, you know what I mean? So I knew which of my second colors to get into, to be able to draft a little bit easier. I mean, of course, he's thinking of something like Tezzeret or Patient Rebuilding, which he knows will make any of the decks that he ends up submitting. I love, one of the things I love about Magic is just the ways in which really good players can disagree on things like commons, there are people that I respect very much that have called Druid of the Cowl the best common in the whole format. Clearly, Ken Yukihiro does not agree with that, So,
well, I thought that might have been a case of I still don't know if I'm green.
There's a part of it for sure. I think the Strangling Spores definitely threw him off a little bit, the way those kept flowing in Pack 2.
All right, players are counting out their cards, making sure everything's copacetic here as they go into the third pack.
This is total power creep, right? We used to deal with Woodland Elf, and that was 1/2 for 2 mana. Now they just give it an extra point of toughness for free.
Yeah, this card has been fantastic, and we saw people getting turn 4 Thornhide Wolves down and just putting their opponent under so much pressure. And again, that 1/3 body really relevant against the rush decks.
And ramp is best in blue-green, where you get the card draw and kind of that deck velocity from blue. and you want to be able to just deploy your game plan fast enough.
There's a Druid of the Cowl. He does respect the card. He's looking at it here pretty early. There's also a Vine Mare. There's a Snapping Drake, a Sky Scanner. Sky Scanner, goes up a tick here for him with a Psymaster Thopterist in his already selected cards.
Extraordinarily difficult pick here. The Vine Mare really tough on his mana. Very clearly the best card.
Also a Demon of Catastrophes. There's a great black card for him. Wow, and a Lich's Caress. So now, oh boy, black is back in play here. What would you pick here, given those cards at this moment? Wow, he's taking Demon of Catastrophes. He said, I am green-black. Or, I'm sorry, blue-black, and not green.
Surprising for me, the Demon of Catastrophes. I don't think that was the best black card in the booster.
Wow. So there's a Reassembling Skeleton. Goes well with the Demon of Catastrophes.
Mm-hmm. One nice thing about Demon of Catastrophes, pretty nice if you copy it with Mirror Image.
Wow. All right, there's Reassembling Skeleton.
So now the ship on green has sailed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
The Druid of the Cowl was very much, you could tell he was conflicted. Maybe if it had been, I wonder if it had been just one green card. He's like, I don't want to think about these green cards.
I wonder how much, with the players, especially the professionals, being a little less familiar from Core Set 2019, I wonder how many drafts Ken has under his belt and how much he's thinking about his success with that blue-black deck at Pod 1, where he very easily got all 3 wins.
Departed Deckhand, an easy pick for him over Divination.
Mm-hmm. Departed Deckhand, a card I've been really, really impressed with as a curve filler. The clause, when it becomes the target of a spell, sacrifice it, little misleading. It frequently would have died to such spell
exactly,
anyway. Yeah.
Exactly. The only time I've ever gotten to, kill it was like a Talons of Wildwood, right? Enchant it with my Talons of Wildwood, get my Talons of Wildwood back. But other than that, you're actually, if I use a Titanic Growth on it, I mean, that's not great. That doesn't feel good.
And 2 very powerful abilities, obviously, right beneath it.
Now, another Divination, an Aven Windmage, Skymarch Bloodletter. There's a couple other black cards in there as well. Oh, there's a Plague Mare. He's already passed one of those in the first pack. He likes that Bloodletter.
I think that Plague Mare in a vacuum, a stronger card than the Skymarch Bloodletter. Mana considerations are such that he's probably going to be able to play 7-ish swamps, maximum 8, making casting Plague Mare kind of a chore.
All right. So there's wow, Liliana's Contract, Fell Spectre. Also a Gearsmith Guardian, a card he really seems to like a lot.
Liliana's Contract, I think, is a borderline bomb. I think it's extremely good. He may feel he has enough other ways to gain card advantage and not enough early defense in order to go that route. We also see he loves his Gearsmith Guardians.
He's like, I like 5/5s for 5. I don't know what to tell you. And they're always 5/5s for 5 in my deck. Wow, late Lich's Caress. We saw this in the first draft with Ken Yukihiro, where he just, kind of drifted around between 3 colors, kind of hung out, and then, really got rewarded in that third pack. Just found himself in a great spot, and people are just passing him black cards.
And if you recall, in pack 1, he did get past the Skyrider Patrol, but not really a lot of the green cards to go with it. So he may have thought early in this booster, I don't have any evidence that green is going to flow to me. So even though he had the opportunity to take some really strong green cards, he correctly identified black as being more likely to be the color that was open in pack 3 and is now being rewarded for it.
I love that Skilled Animator in this deck. I think he has enough artifacts for it.
It's close. Curve considerations here. I mean, a lot of his artifacts already happen to be 5/5s.
That's fair. I was thinking about his Thopter tokens, but sure. Do you ever want a second Reassembling Skeleton? You're
not ideally, yeah.
Aviation Pioneer versus Gearsmith Guardian. Put them both in. Let's see who comes out on top. I think it's going to be Gearsmith Guardian for Ken Yukihiro.
I mean, he has enough 5s at this point, right? The Pioneer is just too good, isn't it?
I think so. Okay. All right. He does. He heard you there, Paul. He didn't actually hear him. We're a little bit not live. There's a two-headed zombie. There's a Manolith. Doesn't want that. Feels like he's pretty good on his artifact count.
Two-headed zombie, I think, pretty unlikely to make his final deck, but
Hey, what if you copy it? What if it's like 4 heads of zombies?
pretty many zombies. But just in case there's a Liliana at the table, you don't want to let someone get out of control.
Hired Blade. Nothing really here. Gearsmith Prodigy if you feel like you just absolutely need to have some really low curve cards in your deck, but he's going to take that Hired Blade. Kind of a weird combat trick for these blue-black decks sometimes.
Pretty decent. Little surprised he wouldn't take Rogue's Gloves. Not a card that I value very highly, the Rogue's Gloves, but a card that I lose to all the time.
All right, well, we have jumped ahead here, and we are looking at Alex Sittner now.
And we're back to
and then we're back to Ken Yukihiro. There we go. Little peek into the future, though.
A wrinkle through time that we just had right there. Sneak preview of a Banefire, it seemed like, I think, from Alex Sittner.
Yeah, spoilers.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is we've already seen this.
Let's see what he does with his Rogue's Gloves. Oh, he passed Rogue's Gloves again.
Wow,
Do you
deja vu all over again here during Draft 2 of Grand Prix Minneapolis. There's a Scholar of Stars and a Hired Blade. And it's easy Scholar of Stars for you?
Yeah, I think he's going to take the Scholar of Stars. This is not the ideal Scholar of Stars deck because a lot of his artifacts happen to be at a later point in the curve than Scholar of Stars comes out, but still a card that will likely make his deck.
Yeah, and then just rounding it out, he doesn't have any use for that Highland Lake, but now nobody will be able to use it either at the table. No late mana fixing. That's why I was kind of surprised to see it come around. Wow, there's a Skeleton Archer very late.
Yeah.
Shocking, really.
Not quite shocking, like zapping.
Zapping, sure, yeah. I mean, he drafted it with some flair.
Yeah.
All right. Wow. Ken Yukihiro ends up in blue-black for the second time we've gotten to watch him draft. Could have been blue-green, but really felt like he got a very strong signal. Nightmare's Thirst, 2 Strangling Spores, just following him around the table, trying until he finally took them, and then gets rewarded with a Lich's Caress in the 3rd pack. And Demon of Catastrophes was a big deal for him.
And that's the unique dynamic of Booster Draft. 2 packs move to the left, only 1 to the right. And I think, as we mentioned before, he realized that while he had enough green cards to potentially make a blue-green deck, he was very unlikely to get more high-powered green cards in pack 3. Correctly identified that black would be the other color with blue that was flowing, and has a pretty good deck. Not quite the same quality deck he had the first time around, but I think easily enough to get him the 3 match points he needs to make this top 8.
And while he was seeing green cards, maybe he just felt like, okay, I'm seeing green cards, but maybe someone's making a choice on the green cards that I'm getting, and they weren't running very deep for him.
Right.
And had the discipline to not get lured in by those Druidic Owls. Okay, we got a couple brief messages, and then we'll be back with more draft coverage here from day 2 of Grand Prix Minneapolis.